Third maze. Red. Ambra was hiding, waiting, watching. Any minute now. Behind her, on one side of the dusty road below, were Tian Shan, the soaring celestial mountains. On the other, the steppe led to the vast Taklamakan desert in the distance. She surveyed her surroundings. It was the perfect place for her gang to ambush the traders who traversed the road between the lands to the east and the west. Ambra's gang of marauding thieves had been relieving the wealthy merchants of their wares along this part of the road for a long time. Silks, spices, gold and precious gems all traded for food, weapons, horses, and the power of being the most feared robber gang of their domain, which it was rumoured had the favour of the local warlord. A tithe of the gang's bounty was a small price to pay for being left to carry out their raids without interference. The sound of hooves heralded the awaited caravan, which rounded a bend and came into view. Ambra's body tensed. Her role, given her small frame, was to dive in and look for any strongbox or valuables, while the physically powerful members of the gang dealt with the travelling party, particularly the armed escorts. Ambra had heard, in various public houses, that people thought her gang were men. Of course they would assume that, as all members' faces were hidden under scarves and various head coverings. People had no idea that they were all women, led by the strongly built Rona who had come from lands far to the west. The caravan drew closer. The cool mountain air swept down from the snow-capped peaks behind, breathing down the back of Ambra's neck. She glanced along the foot of the mountain where her comrades were lying in wait behind various rocky outcrops. The gang's horses were quietly grazing out on the steppe, invisible from the road. The caravan was in range. With only a hand signal, Rona initiated the attack. Instant pandemonium. Horses rearing, people screaming, weapons hacking at flesh. Ambra saw the lead driver of the caravan battling Rona, shouting and protesting. A fountain of red spurted from the man's neck. Rona had slit his throat, and the corpse slithered onto the dirt track. Ambra's stomach churned as she watched. The other gang members set about slaying and chasing away all the other travellers. But before Ambra's gang could ransack the caravan, there came the sound of hooves approaching from the steppe. Caught unaware, the mountain dwellers were themselves set on by another gang of thieves, the desert dwellers. In minutes, the desert gang had fought their way to seize the treasures the caravan was transporting. Their task made easier because half the job had already been done for them. With a flourish of sand-coloured robes and horses' tails, they were gone as swiftly as they had arrived, taking the valuables with them. Rona smashed her fist onto the side of one of the carriages. This was the latest in a long line of skirmishes with the desert thieves that had lost them valuable provisions and equipment, including weapons. "They must be stopped. This is our hunting ground," thundered Rona. Ambra's heart sank. For months she had tried to talk with Rona about this, to no avail. Each time the mountain gang had been ambushed, Rona would plot a retaliatory raid on the desert dwellers. Each time, both gangs lost members. Each time, nothing was ever truly gained by either gang, just stolen, stolen back, and stolen again. It was complete chaos. There was no sense of order. Ambra wished there was one big boss to keep them all in line, maybe even work together. In that moment, she made up her mind. She would take a horse and flee to the nearest citadel, find work, anything to have some stability, some peace, some greater purpose. She turned, ready to escape, only to find a figure in a sand-coloured robe holding a knife pointed at her throat, the jewelled hilt gleaming in the rays of the setting sun. She barely had time to determine whether the crazed eyes of the knife-wielding bandit belonged to a man or a woman, when the figure thrust the knife at her throat. Once again, the world dissolved. Ambra was gasping, clutching at her throat. The red light cleared from her vision. She was back in the MAGE cave. She looked at her shaking hands. There was no blood. Placing her hand over her heart, she felt it pounding until her breathing eventually returned to normal. The lanterns lost their red bite, faded to lavender, and slowly transformed to a deep royal blue.